Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Mary Carlson.
Hi, I'm Maggie Clackingay.
And I'm Jamie Bosse.
And we're so glad to have Jamie with us. We are money, financially minded moms ready to talk with our friend Jamie Bosse today. Jamie has a new book out, which we are so excited to preview. I brought my copy along, as you can see the tag marks and all, of Money Boss Mom. So thank you so much, Jamie, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You bet.
So, Jamie, there are a couple things that we were been dying to ask you because, first of all, you've written these two adorable children's books that are Milton, the Money Savvy Pup, which are so cute, and they're teaching kids about financial literacy. But then you went ahead and then you wrote this book for young families called Money Boss Mom. So tell us, what made you decide to write this book?
Well, actually, guys, the Money Boss Mom book has been percolating for years. So when I first moved back to Kansas and started working at Aspyre Wealth Partners, I was writing for their blog, and I had a 6-month-old baby, my first child, and now I have 4. And so I was new to the mommy business, just trying to learning all the things that you learn. Like you guys know, there's just so many changes, emotionally, physically, and financially to adapt to. So I was writing a lot of blog content really directed at moms and parents, just all the things I was learning and going through and how it's different from when you learn it in school versus you're going through it yourself. So I started writing a lot of articles toward parents, and then I kept joking that, gosh, I need to write a book about this because I have so much content here. And then in 2017, I actually started organizing it into chapters and taking blogs that I'd already written and putting them in different folders that I might make into chapters one day. And then I just got back into it, kept adding to it, got back into it last year and started actually doing it. So it's really fun to have a book out there because as financial planners, we can't help everyone, but we want to. And so it's a great way to just, reach a wider audience. And I feel like with parenthood, the stakes are so high. There's just so many moving parts and so many things going on that we can help with. So.
I totally agree. Yeah. And I loved reading this book. And Mary, I don't know about you, for me, Jamie, you made it so much fun with all the connections to pop culture. So Zach and Kelly, which, by the way, I was talking to another financial advisor, and I'm a Gen Xer, and I said Zach and Kelly, and I said clearly Saved by the Bell, and this financial advisor said, no, it's like Bayside High, and I thought, hey, well, I'm older, but it's still the reference is so key because it's still taking in younger parents. And you talked about the girl with the dragon tattoo, and yet you're still tying in these really important financial concepts.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's fun to tie in stories and just different references to make a sometimes boring topic more amusing.
I totally understand that. So there was one concept that I absolutely loved, and Mary and I had talked about this. And can you share with us what it is, the most important piece of a puzzle, and why?
I will. Yeah. So that is in chapter 1, where we're kind of talking about goals and getting to achieve them. And so I had a manager actually at a previous job that had a lot of good analogies, and this was one of his. And his name's Chad Hamilton. And he talked about, the question is, what is the most important piece of a puzzle? And a lot of people first say, duh, the corner pieces. How are you going to do a puzzle without the corner pieces? And then, other people kind of have other explanations like, oh, the last piece or the first piece or all of the pieces, or you can't have a complete picture, And so the answer to the question, though, is the picture on the front of the box. And the reason that applies here is, that picture on the front of the box is what gives you the vision of what you're trying to create. So with, financial planning goals and any goal, really, you're not trying to just do something to do it. You're changing your habits and doing things to reach that goal. So for example, a lot of people say things like, oh, I need to save more, or I need to be a better saver. And it's like, well, for why? For what? How much? How, like, what do you, and so it's not a motivating enough goal to make them change their lifestyle or do anything differently. But if they then change that to a compelling vision of the future they'd like to have, where they are debt free and they have the flexibility to travel twice a year, or they retire by the time their child graduates from college, so if they have a vision of what that is, then changing behaviors and making decisions now is a lot less painful, and it doesn't feel like a sacrifice, so if you're saving money now for something you can envision that you really want to have, it's a lot easier to do, and it doesn't feel like a sacrifice.
Yeah, and Jamie, one of the things I really like too is it's not just once and done. It's something that's a continuing conversation that you go over and over, because you may have had this idea of, oh, I want this second house, this dream home, and then your life changes, right? Like just like we talked about with kids coming and just life happening, your goals change. And so with that, it's a constant updating and reassessing and constant communication with your spouse or partner, and making sure that you're on the same page and what that looks like and what that future looks like. How do you recommend, Jamie, that couples talk about money?
Oh, that is a loaded question, right? So it's difficult, right? So talking about money is hard for everyone, regardless if it's a couple or any other relationship, because it's such a personal thing. And the way you grew up impacts the way you think about money. Your behaviors are all tied up in the way you think about money. So there's just a lot of things going into it. I would say, at least trying to have a cognitive conversation about it, like at least once a month, just like, what are we working towards? Where are we at? Is anything wrong? Is anything we need to talk about? Just to keep those lines of communication open. And the biggest thing is not to be, leave the anger at the table, the judgment at the table. Don't come into the room with those things. Just be ready to listen and hear them out, because money's a really emotional topic.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that I liked at the very beginning. In fact, your very first chapter, you talked about these things called money scripts and money history. Would you tell us just a quick version of what a money script is?
Sure. Yeah. So the money scripts are kind of our unconscious bias about money. And a lot of these things are shaped in childhood. So like before age 10, even. So we don't really have control over them, but they impact how we spend money today, which is really crazy. So the money scripts, they were developed by the Klontz family. So Brad Klontz.
Yeah, Brad and his father, Ted.
You can take a test on their website to see what they are, to see what yours is. And then it gives you some tips on how to then kind of flip the script of, okay, I have this money script that's influencing my behavior, but I need to look out for these things, or when these things come up, this is how I can navigate around them.
And I think that's one of the things I liked when you started that way, is because those are really intangibles. It's not asking how much do we need for retirement, or what are we saving or not saving for vacation this year, or whatever the hard questions may be, right? It's spending and all the rest. It really starts with a conversation. And it starts by learning about your partner or your spouse, and learning about how they grew up with money or didn't grow up with money, and what they communicated or didn't communicate, and what some of those scripts, for lack of a better word, sometimes dysfunctions are with money, and how to converse about them in a marriage. And I think that sets such a framework for the entire rest of your book that you have.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I know that as Mary knows, that with so the Klontz money script inventory assessment, that's actually something that I send to my clients before we even start our first session, because it is identifying those money scripts and then working through, as we're working together in our coaching sessions, retweaking or rescripting some of those key money scripts. So I do love that you did that in chapter 1, Jamie. And then in chapter 9, you did, talking about love and relationships and how money affects them. And, it is so important, and it is so personal. So, it's getting some guidance is always key, but then it always comes down to, the couple themselves. So another thing I wanted to bring up for our audience, especially because we have a lot of young families in our audience, is in your chapter 4, you talked about an insurance, and you cited a 2019 statistic from salary.com, and it was about a stay-at-home mom or dad. If paid for their services, they would demand a salary of $178,201 for around-the-clock work. And can you share with us a little bit why it's so important to ensure a stay-at-home parent?
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, stay-at-home parents have the hardest job there is, hands down, and should be paid millions of dollars for their work. but when we talk about insurance, I feel like life insurance in particular, when you look at the rules of thumb and things out there, there's a lot of information out there on income replacement, right? So if you have income, you need life insurance to replace it if someone depends on that income. So there's the rule of thumb that you should have 7 to 10 times your income in life insurance. And so that's an easy reference to make. But when you have a stay-at-home parent, how do you then measure that to see how much insurance they need? So in the book, the Zach and Kelly reference, so it's Kelly Kapowski and Zach Morris from Saved by the Bell. And if you have to look them up, you should look up the show. It's really good. And I use them as like a hypothetical example where Kelly is, has a powerhouse career. She's traveling. She's on the road all the time, has a great income. And then Zach is a stay-at-home dad to their 3 boys. And so I kill them both off to show you the example of why life insurance is needed. But it's clear that Kelly needs the insurance because she has a high income. If she didn't have that income, the family would not have the lifestyle that they're used to. But then I go through the example too, if Zach as the stay-at-home dad passed away, that has a really big impact on cash flow and lifestyle as well. So, if a stay-at-home parent were to pass away, then all of a sudden there's daycare, after school care, nanny services maybe for the children. And, depending on how many kids you have, that could be upwards of $35,000 a year. So that's a big cash flow item. In the example, Kelly was a traveling worker. And so if she continued in that career, she would then have to have overnight care for those kids. That would also be pretty expensive. And she may then have to outsource, cooking, laundry, cleaning, things like that a stay-at-home parent is taking care of as well. So, there's just a lot to think about if a stay-at-home parent would not be around anymore, that really is a financial hit. So I recommend that stay-at-home parents have at least, at a minimum, $250,000 to $400,000 in life insurance coverage until the kids are adults, if not much more, depending on expenses and lifestyle and where you live and things like that.
And so let's go into what happens if the parent is no longer there. Let's go into estate planning documents a little bit, just because I think, it is a hard sell for us to be talking to our clients about it, right? Nobody wants to face their mortality. But it really comes up, especially when, and you can tell me, how this has worked for you. I found in my experience that it's when the parents decide to go out of the country together and all of a sudden they go, we don't have any estate planning documents. And then they're in a rush before they get on the plane to get it done. But, how important is it, and what are some basic estate documents that, that our audience could start thinking about having done today?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Maggie. It's a hard conversation to have with people because they don't want to think about their own demise or their family going on without them in it. But the fact is, it's 100% likelihood that we're going to die as of today, but based on current science. But hopefully it doesn't happen while we're young. But if it does, doing estate planning documents really is a favor to your family, right? So it helps make things easier for those that you leave behind. So kind of the basic documents that parents need, you definitely need a will. A lot of people think you don't need a will unless you're wealthy, but that's not the case. If you're a parent, you definitely need a will because that is where you name potential guardians for the children if you were to pass away. So you actually want to put a couple layers of people in there too, right? So maybe your first choice and then a couple of backups just in case those people aren't available. And then other documents you can put in place are some of the power of attorney documents that come into play if you are still alive, but you're incapacitated. So, you've been in a car accident, you're in a coma in the hospital, who can pay your bills, who can talk to doctors on your behalf, who can make decisions for you, those sort of things. So just kind of laying that out. And generally you would put, your spouse or partner as the first option in those documents, and then maybe a couple of backups after that. Another one is kind of the living will document of, kind of the pull the plug document if you have any specific requests for that. And then, if two doctors claim that you're not going to come back to your normal self, then, discontinue feeding and things like that, or any religious preferences you have, those sort of things.
It's nothing, I think both situations, there are things that people don't want to talk about, right? So we throw in money, which is already hard to talk about, and then we throw in death, and that just makes ripe for non-conversations starters. And so, but you make such a great point in your book several times of, when these things happen, and I like that you've got the levity in there and the kind of funny sort, but we're still in the middle of a pandemic. This is happening all around us. And I think the urgency of knowing that and doing it is important. And it doesn't matter whether you're 20 years old or you're 80 years old. Everybody needs them. And especially this clientele that you're focused on of moms. And whether you're a single parent, especially I should say, if you're a single parent, or making it with both. One of the other parts I really liked in that estate chapter was the part about the family planning binder. So when you have an emergency, that there's information that you're sharing between your spouse. I know, in my situation, I do handle a lot of the finances. We communicate about it. But if I were just to not come home one day, I really don't know that my husband would know where everything is and where to find the will, where to find the living power of attorney or the living will. So tell us more about what this is, this idea of an estate, a family emergency binder.
Yeah, you summed it up pretty well. It's just kind of like, here is the things that you need to know about, the family and our finances that maybe one person takes care of on their behalf. A lot of times it is the mom of the house that's taking care of all those things, but it could be, a list of allergies for the kids if grandma needs to pick up this binder and take over, a list of preferences, kids, they don't like this, they don't like this, doctors information, phone numbers for insurance companies and where the policies are, with the location of the will, how to find it, those sort of things that, you take care of it as the person in charge, but then if no one else can find it when you're gone, it's doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And it's a good combination, Jamie, of when you think about it, when you're first looking for babysitters, right? And you're trying to say, okay, what are my boys' preferences and what like allergies or whatnot. And so it's kind of putting together some of those personal details and then putting some of those financial details, like you said, like if it's just one person in the household who's taking care of most of the finances, who knows all the passwords, things like that, but then putting those two together. So as parents, we may already have some of those details already written out if you did prepare something for like a babysitter or a nanny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. But it's something where someone can pick it up and feel at least a little bit informed as to where to start.
Absolutely. Jamie, as a wrap up, there is so much good information in this book. We highly recommend it. Go get your copy of Money Boss Mom. But in summary, Jamie, would you tell us what is the one thing that a mom should start doing today to help better prepare herself financially?
Yeah, so I think, so you said it, Mary. So in the conclusion of my book, I talk about just do one thing. Like when you think about financial stuff, there is a million things to do, right? You save more, you got retirement, you got college funding, you got insurance, you got estate planning and taxes, like the whole 9 yards. And so I like for people to just kind of take it in bite-sized amounts. So, like if you read the book, there's a summary at the end of each one that's like, here's, kind of 3 things you could do. But I would say just kind of break it up and say, okay, so we're going to tackle the insurance piece, then do that, have that be your focus for this month. And then next month, pick up another financial planning topic, like getting the will done, or, starting to save into your 401k. Just do one thing, and then you will be a whole lot better than you were before. And so, it's hard not to get paralysis by analysis when we're looking at so many things, but just pick one thing and check it off your list, and then move to the next one.
Awesome. This was fantastic. Jamie, thank you so much for joining us today. We will be sure to link to all 3 of your books in the show notes. And then if you like this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channels at Make a Money Mindshift and at Chief Financial Mom, and tune in soon, and we will present another Money Talks with Mary Maggie. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.